So I might read Jasmine's story. She won, this is Jasmine Craig, she won honourable mention for The Maiden in the Rainbow.
In the open short stories.
In the open short stories, yeah. Melanie was a dreamer. Every day after school, she would sit in the window seat in her bedroom and dream. She never played with other children. One day you will go into dreamland and never come back, her mother used to say. Why don't you make some friends? But Melanie did not want friends. She loved to dream and think. The day this story takes place was on a Friday. As usual, Melanie was sitting in her window seat in her snuggly hoodie, dreaming. They had just had a sun shower and there was a beautiful rainbow stretching from the mountains to the sea. Melanie loved rainbows. They reminded her of happy things. She was imagining what it would be like to walk on the rainbow when suddenly a beautiful maiden clad in a rainbow silk was staring at her from the other side of the glass. Melanie opened her window and the stranger held out her hand. Come with me, Melanie, the rainbow lady said in a musical voice. Melanie did not hesitate to grab hold of the maiden's hand and follow her out the window. Melanie was well acquainted with dreaming, but she had never had a visitor from the land of dreams before. Anything is possible here, said the maiden to Melanie. This place is dreamland. Melanie decided to make the most of her time here. She let go of the maiden's hand and flew towards the sea. She imagined many things. She made clouds appear under her feet. She made the sea become candy and stuffed lollies in her pockets. She made many things happen that could never happen in the real world. She flew around the world in a few seconds and flew on the angel's back, and the whole time the maiden followed her. When they came to Melanie's town again, the maiden spoke. Come with me, Melanie. There is one thing you have not done. Melanie took the maiden's hand once again and watched in delight as a rainbow appeared under their feet. At last I get to walk on a rainbow. She ran back and forth, exclaiming at the colours. Then the maiden leaped into the air and two more beautiful maidens appeared. One was from the sea, one was from nature. The three maidens danced and sang until Melanie's eyes grew heavy and she fell asleep on the rainbow. When Melanie awoke, she was sitting in her window seat once more. The rainbow was gone and it had begun to rain again. Melanie, Melanie's mother appeared at her bedroom door. I have been calling you for minutes, 5 minutes. For once, stop your silly dreaming and come and help me make dinner. I will be there in a minute, Melanie said, hopping up to get out of her uniform. As Melanie folded up her school pants, a few lollipops and chewies fell out. Melanie gasped in delighted surprise. Could her dream have been real after all?
That's very good. Rebecca Newman.
Oh, yes.
There she is. Yeah.
Yes, please.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Okay, magpie season. The magpie sits and watches. His beady eyes are mean. Nothing must get near the nest, but what is that he's seen? A threat, a pram below him, a baby come to play, a flap, a swoosh, a swoop, aha! The humans run away. The magpie sits and listens. His feathered head is still. Something seems to worry him. He waits and waits until a threat, a bike comes zooming. It's moving very fast. A flap, a swoosh, a swoop, aha! She's riding off at last. The magpie's running back and forth. He's pecking at the ground. His magpie chick is pleading for the bugs that he has found. A threat, a dog starts barking. It charges up the street. A flap, a swoosh, a swoop, aha! The mission is complete.
Done.
That's it.
Thank you.
How long have you been writing poetry?
I have been writing since about 2008, but just little pockets and corners of things. So,
Well, you might be interested to know you came first in the primary school judging from Festjval
Oh,
primary
that's
school.
really exciting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the kids really loved it, which is good.
Mm. And
Fantastic. Thank you
yeah.
very much for that opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome.
there have been years where the prizes chosen by the adult judge were totally different from the ones that spoke to the children. And it's always salutary for the people who write the poems as well, that they need to be clever but not too clever, and they need to really be on a level that the children can appreciate. And they certainly loved the first and second prizes that were chosen. Jenny, have you read yours?
No, not yet.
So you don't know what you're reading it for,
No,
do you?
I don't know what I'm reading.
You're reading Easter Thief?
Yeah.
Yeah, you came third.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Just got to find. I do know them off by heart, just in case I.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Easter Thief. Tell me, Buster. Tell me who would want to rob a kid? How could someone ever do what this offender did? Help me, Buster. Use your snout, your super sense of smell. Sniff the thoughtless scoundrel out, and I'll reward you well. Sit up, Buster. Take your paws away from round your ears. Why the sudden droopy jaws, the hint of doggy tears? Why the worried-looking brow, the tail between the legs? Naughty Buster, fess up now. It's you who stole my eggs.
And thanks for joining us, Jenny.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely to see you again, Jenny.
Thank you, Shelley. Bye. See you later.
Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
Bye.
See you in Talangi sometime.
Yep, certainly. Bye.
I might read this one. It's the Grundy's undies. Both the Grundys washed their undies in their kitchen sink. When I asked why, came her reply, "'Cause it's cheap, I think. We wash by hand, you understand, to save electric power. When clothes you clean, a washing machine wastes money by the hour. Otherwise, we need supplies of washing powder and bleach. Just using soap will give us hope to keep our costs in reach. When duty calls, we wash our smalls and hang them on the line. The wind blows by and makes them dry when the weather's fine. Then in the water goes our daughter. She's just 6 months old. Then our pups, then plates and cups before the water's cold. To save a tub, we have a rub and clean our bodies too. Our bill for water is a quarter of what is charged to you. We've seen the news, recycle, reuse, the slogans for today. Give it a try. I can't think why you haven't tried our way. I'll tell you why, was my reply. The vivid picture you paint of you and your buddy in the nutty is enough to make me faint. So there we are, highly commended.
Very good.
Do we have Susan Hanson?
We do.
Susan, yeah.
Yeah, Susan should be here. Lovely to meet you.
Hi.
Lovely to meet you all. I'm just listening into all the wonderful reciting and really enjoying it today. Thanks for inviting me.
Welcome. And you were given a highly commended for I'd Love to Be, which again is a collection a la C.J. Dennis of I'd Love to Be Something. So would you like to read it?
Yeah, thank you. So in writing these verses, I imagined the professions that a 21st century C.J. Dennis may write about. So I'd love to be a tennis star, to rise to number one, to play on concrete, grass and clay, forever in the sun. I'd practice every day until my forehand really spun and try to serve down balls as though I'm firing from a gun. I'd throw in trick shots here and there and to give the crowd some fun, but I wouldn't be a player if I never ever won. Would you? I'd love to be a mountain guide on ranges high and wide, preparing ropes, ascending safely up the chosen side, avoiding danger, taking every challenge in my stride, helping others reach the peak, achieving goals with pride, returning back to base camp with a cheer for those who tried, but I wouldn't be a mountain guide if all my clients cried. Would you? I'd love to be a chef preparing scrum delicious food using fancy methods such as sauteed, poached and stewed, beginning with ingredients quite natural, fresh and crude, transforming into masterpiece creations to be viewed, then eaten up with gusto, delighting while it's chewed. But I wouldn't be a chef if all the customers were rude, would you? I'd love to be a rock star, to prance around and sing, dressed in shiny leather pants and wearing lots of bling, performing indoors, outdoors, at a club or in a ring, strumming my guitar and spurring crowds to dance and swing, proclaiming to the fans that rock continues to be king, but I wouldn't relish being in a paparazzi sting. Would you? I'd love to be an astronaut and blast off into space. I'd orbit round the world and chat with Houston back at base, discovering exciting things. My friends would think I'm ace, and everyone on planet Earth would recognize my face. At ease in zero gravity, I'd somersault with grace, but I wouldn't want my rocket to explode without a trace. Would you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
It's not easy to find the right words to fit into the rhythm that you need, and then to have that constantly repeating rhyming. So well done. And I love your word, scrum delicious. Shelley Hanson, you're still here too. Are you, Shelley? Yeah, Shelley's there.
Yep, Shelley's there.
Yeah. Shelley, you were highly commended for your Willy Wagtail in the Adults Writing for Children. Would you like to read it?
Thank you very much. That's lovely. Surprise. I took a bit of a risk writing this one actually, because I wrote it in the form of a rondelay, which is an old poetry form dating from the 16th century.
Wow.
So it's a rondelay for children, and it's called Willy Wagtail. Willy Wagtail, perched upon the fence post swinging. Willy Wagtail, lifting high a cheeky bragtail. Suddenly you're off and winging, catching flies the breeze is bringing. Willy Wagtail. Willy Wagtail, how I love to hear your chatter. Willy Wagtail, dancing with your zig and zag tail. Can you tell me what's the matter? Why you jump and dart and scatter? Willy Wagtail. Willy Wagtail, busy long before the dawning. Willy Wagtail, raising up your spreading flagtail, sounding out a shrilly warning in the misty cold of morning. Willy Wagtail. Willy Wagtail, all day long you taunt and tease me. Willy Wagtail, playing games of chase and tagtail. When I'm sad, your birdsong frees me as you make me laugh and please me. Willy Wagtail.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, very clever. And,
Very clever. Gee, I wish I could do that.
yeah, and masterful word choice to rhyme with wagtail. Zig and zagtail. I love it. Yeah, well done. So maybe this would be a time to have some other reciting.
How about we get Jim to do some?
Yeah, Jim, are you
Yes.
willing
Yes,
to do something?
Yes. Yes, I'd like to do one. Thank you. And this is one which I think is a master of C.J. Dennis's ability to capture the soul of Australia in his day. And remnants of that soul are still around, even in a changing society. But to me, he is a master of capturing rural life in its simplicity, because it probably in the country is far, except for the squatters and certain wealthy people, it was far more egalitarian society in those days. And people were much on the same level. And they had a friendship and a community solidarity, which is still around in Australia, I think. And this one is it's called A Bush Christmas, and I thought it's appropriate at this time of year. And it's just how a family in the bush spent their Christmas. And they had a guest that only came once a year, and he was a local character who lived up the road. It's called A Bush Christmas. The sun burns hotly through the gums as down the road old Rogan comes, the battler from the lonely hut beside the track to Woolly Butt. He likes to spend his Christmas with us here. He says, a man gets sort of strange living alone without a change, gets sort of settled in his way. And so he comes each Christmas day to share a bite of tucker and a beer. Dad and the boys have naught to do, except a stray odd job or two. Along the fence or in the yard, it ain't a day for working hard, says Dad. One day a year don't matter much. And then, dishevelled, hot and red, Mum through the doorway pokes her head and says, this Christmas cooking, my, the sun's near fit for cooking by. Upon her word, she never did see such. Your fault, says Dad, you know it is. Plum pudding on a day like this, and roast turkeys, spare me days. I can't get over women's ways. In climates such as this, the thing's all wrong. A bit of cold corn, beef and bread would do us very well instead. Then Rogan said, you're right, it's hot. It makes a fella drink a lot. And Dad gets up and says, well, come along. The dinner's served, full bite and sup. Come on, says Mum, now all sit up. The meal takes on a Festjval, and even Father eats his share and passes up his plate to have some more. He laughs and says, it's Christmas time. That's cooking, Mum. The stubborn's prime. But Rogan pauses once to praise and eats as though he'd starved for days and pitches turkey bones outside the door. The sun burns hotly through the gums. The chirping of the locusts comes across the paddocks parched and grey. Whew, wheezes Father, what a day. Then sheds his vest, for coats no man had need. Then Rogan shoves his plate aside and sighs, as sated men have sighed, as many other boards and many climes in many other Christmas times. By gum, he says, that was a slap-up feed. Then with his black pipe well alight, old Rogan brings the kids delight by telling o'er again his yarns of Christmas tide mid English barns, when he was long ago a farmer's boy. His old eyes glisten as he sees half glimpses of old memories of whitened field and winter snows and Yuletide logs and mistletoes and all that half-forgotten hallowed joy. The children listen, mouths agape, and see a land with no escape, for biting cold and snow and frost, a land to all earth's brightness lost, a strange and freakish Christmas land to them. But Rogan, with his dim old eyes, grown far away and strangely wise, talks on and pauses but to ask, ain't there a drop more in that cask? And Father nods, but Mother says, the sun slants redly through the gums, as quietly the evening comes, and Rogan gets his old grey mare that matches well his own grey hair and rides away into the setting sun. Ah, well, said Dad, I've got to say I'd never spent a lazier day. We ought to get that top fence wired. My, sighs poor Mum, but I am tired, and all that washing up still to be done. I think it's a wonderful poem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I love that one.
Yeah.
In judging, I sometimes judge poetry, sometimes adults, sometimes the children's. I judged the short stories last year, and it dismays me every time that there are people who seem to have just slapped something together and send it in to a competition, unpolished, errors in spelling and grammar, inconsistencies, bad punctuation, sometimes none. And it's such a pity because if you take the trouble to write something, to send out, whether it's to a competition or certainly to a publisher, you owe it to yourself to write it, put it aside for a bit, and then read through it yourself as if you're reading it for the first time, or get somebody else to read it and give you comments on what you might be able to improve, what could be done differently. So yeah, it's just, it dismays me because I feel these people are doing themselves a disservice. The whole of the judges' comments will be available online, and also they're in the book. There are only 13 stories submitted. Hopefully there will be more in the future. 2 of them are noticeably shorter than 500 word limit, and they suffered from their brevity. So that's something I mentioned before. It's hard to write a really good story in 500 words. It also shows you, when you read the judges' comments, that the judges are fallible, and the judges make choices, and they have prejudices, and often they're not even aware of it. And I also want to say as a judge that once I get to the shortlist, I have a long list, which is what's left after I've put aside all the ones that aren't worth considering for any number of reasons, either because they're just bad writing or because while they might be interesting, they haven't been polished, they're full of mistakes and so on. And in a competition, as I said before, we expect some attention to detail of the English language. But then when it comes to the shortlist, it becomes harder, because the shortlist, really, any one of them in another judge's hands could be the winner. And even when I as a judge get to picking the first, second and third and 2, sometimes 3 commended, I agonize and agonize and agonize and reread to wonder whether perhaps, that commended one, maybe that should be second. And so it's very, very difficult. And people who enter competitions need to know that certainly if they've got to a prize or a commended or a mention, their work is good enough to have won. And did somebody else want to read something of Dennis? Maybe David or Shelley or...
I've got a funny one.
Yeah.
It comes from Dennis's Forgotten Writings by Gary Hutchinson. He researched them through the newspapers. And there's a newspaper comment in the beginning of all of them. This one is called Heredity. A French professor of agriculture has discovered that a ration of wine is good for hens. After experimenting, he declares that wet hens lay more eggs than teetotal ones. "You may ask me," said the rooster, "why I wander in a haze, in the way no rooster used to in the old teetotal days. You may ask me why I wobble with a queer, uncertain walk, and incontinently gobble at a hiccup when I talk. Yet I'm all for prohibition, and my case is most forlorn, for this terrible condition came about when I was born. And the reason that I tip so on my strange, uncertain legs is that mother was a dipso and laid alcoholic eggs."
That's good.
Dennis was a master at writing comments like that on topical subjects. And in fact, he was given stories each day by the Herald, I think, for him to write something about. And Jim, you know something about the couriers that had to go back and forth because he wasn't well enough to go into the city.
Yes, that's right. That's true. Dennis is probably blessed and cursed at the same time. He was blessed by having to write almost every day of his life. because he had a job at the newspaper, and they would often ring him up and say, "Can you write a poem about?" And he, over the years, he became very good at it. And there's one he wrote, which I think shows the ability of the man and how he could respond to a fairly serious subject and within 24 hours dash off a brilliant piece of literature. It's called The Cab Driver's Horse. And the newspaper rang him up one day in Tulane and said, there's a new organisation called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It's just been formed, 1924, I think it was, in the 1920s. And one of you to write a poem about animal cruelty. And that, in the next day, it was in the Mail, and they published it side by side with the story. I would spend weeks trying to write something anywhere near as good as that. And he was able to dash it off in a hurry, mainly because he had that discipline of being able to write. I don't know whether he kept scrapbooks or ideas for future reference, but this one I think is one of the masterpieces where he just saw, this poem showed the need for the RSPCA. Now, you wouldn't imagine to look at me that I was a racehorse once. I've done my mile in, let me see, no matter, I was no dunce, but you'd not believe me if I told of gallops I did in the days of old. I was first in, oh well, what's the good? It hurts to recall those days, when I drew from men as a proud horse should, nothing but words of praise. Oh, the waving hats and the cheering crowd, how could a horse help being proud? My owner was just as proud as I. I was cuddled and petted and praised. My fame was great and my price was high, and every year 'twas raised. Then I strained a sinew in 99, and that's when started my swift decline. I was turned to grass for a year or so, then dragged to an auction sale. And a country sport gave me a go, but how could I hope but fail? A crock, said he, and I here began to learn of the ways of cruel man. A year I spent as a lady's hack. I was growing old and spent, but she said that the riding hurt her back, so we parted and I went for a while, and it nearly broke my heart, dragging a greasy butcher's cart. Then my stifle went. I think that's a muscle in the leg. And I, proud horse, son of the nobly born, the haughty king of a city course, knew even a butcher's scorn. So down the ladder I quickly ran till I came to be owned by a bottle man. And my bed was hard, and my food was poor, and my work was harder still, dragging a cart from door to door, the slave of Bottle-O Bill, till even he, for a few mean bob, sold me into this hateful job. As I dozed and dreamed in the ranks one day, thinking of good days past, I heard a voice that I knew cry, "Hey, say cabby, is this horse fast?" And he looked at me in a way I know 'twas the man I'd loved in the long ago. 'Twas my dear old master of 99, and I waited fair surprised, but ne'er by a look and ne'er by a sign did he show he recognised. Then I heard his words. 'Twas my last hard knock. "Why don't you poleaxe the poor old crock?" And he turned aside to a low-bred mare that was foaled on some cockey's farm, and he drove away. What do I care? I can come to no more harm. In a knacker's yard, I'm worth at least some pence for a hungry lion's feast.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim.
Thank you.
That little bit, the short poem Heredity reminded me that some years ago when I first came across that, I did a spoof on it, I suppose. I'll read you a couple of the first couple of verses. The rest gets a little bit risque for the current audience. And I've called it Heredity Revisited. Getting pregnant in the old days involved pleasure, it is said. Men and women used the old ways, and 'twas usually in bed. Under medical control now, people tend to mix and match, and the doctors tell them all how to conceive and how to hatch. And it goes on from there. I won't read any more, but you can have great fun with Dennis's poetry as I think a lot of us have with Steve Whiteside, for instance, with the Ant Explorer, and as we've seen in this particular competition with I'd Like to Be and the Taranti Montigondolope and so on, that he almost makes it easy in one way to have a go, but then it's not all that easy to make it work well. So the people who have made it work well, good on you. It's good fun. David, are you still there? Were you interested in reading anything?
What I might do is go back to, if I just get it here, go back to 2014.
Yeah.
And there's a poem I wrote back then which won the Open.
Oh, right,
section.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And Shaz asked me to look back at one or two of the old poems, and this is one that was relevant at the time because it concerns the area around Tulangi, and it's still relevant now. And obviously issues in the news, environmental issues that are in the news for a whole lot of areas around the place. It's called When a Tree Falls. When a tree falls in the forest and an ecosystem dies, there's a tiny world forsaken in the graveyard where it lies. For the birds have lost the shelter that for years they have enjoyed, and the rare leadbeater's possum sees its habitat destroyed. For a tree is home and haven to a teeming multitude, a variety of life forms that depend on it for food, and a chance to give their species the most favoured breeding place, with protection from the weather in our climate's harsh embrace. As the dozers and the chainsaws kill the heartbeat of our land with a careless, callous blindness that is hard to understand, we are left to mourn the passing of the legacy of time in a moment of destruction that should constitute a crime. All the government's excuses are just politicians' noise, a mere bureaucratic smokescreen that the leadership employs as a means of hiding pledges they have made to buy some votes, with an ignorance unequalled of the danger that denotes. For the forest is our future. It's the breath of each new dawn, and a refuge for the creatures that we soon will have to mourn as they vanish from the valleys that have nurtured them since birth, to fall victim to the carnage as we desecrate the earth. In the hills around Tulangi, where the mountain ash trees grow, mighty monuments of grandeur from the days of long ago, there is no halt to the logging that creates an ugly scar which disfigures verdant beauty across vistas near and far. You'd have thought consideration for the fragile countryside might have been a telling factor when so much of nature died as the bushfire's devastation changed the forest's green to black. But the government did nothing and unwisely turned its back. So the Eucalyptus regnans is brought crashing to the ground. Once the ruler of its kingdom, it is ruthlessly uncrowned to lie shattered, crushed and broken in some former leafy glade, and then harvested as wood chips so that paper can be made. In the lofty mountain ranges, when the loggers' days are done, it is death that haunts the stillness, for their battle has been won. The machines of man have conquered, the environment is lost, and in each year's long, slow turning, we will have to pay the cost. For the bounty we should cherish will soon disappear from view in an arid, barren landscape that replanting can't renew. And the children of our children will despair when we recall that we stood around in silence as we watched the last tree fall.
Yeah.
After those devastating bushfires that they had up there, which fortunately the Singing Gardens managed to escape.
They managed to escape the fire, but not the wind.
Yeah.
True. I
You
remember
lost-
those trees down. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, driving from Talangi on the road to Healesville, you see bare patches on some of the mountains, and it's heartrending.
Yeah. The logging coops. Yeah.
Oh, hello,
Janine.
Janine. Hi, and
Hello. I just realised I exclaimed and I'd unmuted.
oh, that's okay.
Yeah, this has been beautiful. And David Campbell, thank you so much for sharing When a Tree Falls. I discovered bush poetry in 2015, and perhaps I get to thank the CJ Dennis organisation for prompting you to write that piece. That's when I first fell in love with you. And oh wow, wonderful to hear the performance today and that it had similar impact on others in the audience. Thanks. I'll switch out. Oh, this has been fabulous.
Janine is the driving force behind one of our. Are you still there, Janine? Do you want to say something about?
Yeah, please do, Janine.
Just say something about your let's call it your competition.
Because David Campbell dropped Shelley Hanson in it before and it was unexpected, I went off propping things about Black and Billy. It's an annual competition for rhymed and metered verse, and it's been capturing amazing stories of Australia since 1991. The 32nd annual awards will be announced down at Orange. I brought out my little mini Black and Billy. We moved from the Tamworth base, where the awards commenced in 1991. We moved to Orange to be part of the Banjo Patterson Australian Poetry Festival.
Sharon Dye Scott is with us. Maybe you'd like to read your poem Playmates for Pedro, which you don't know and nobody else knows, 1/3 prize in the children's choice for the adults writing for children. While the adult judge didn't pick it up, the children gave it 3rd prize. So
oh. that's so exciting because last year in the same category I actually got 2nd voted by the children. Yeah.
And not by the judge, I think.
No.
That's right. So you obviously are better at writing for children than writing for adults who think they're children.
That's my goal. I'm trying to write picture books for children, picture book manuscripts. So that's my target audience.
Oh, right. Well, keep it up. Would you like to read it?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Playmates for Pedro. Pedro the python was lonely and meek. He tried to be helpful but made others shriek. He noticed a family moving next door. I'll be what they need, then they'll like me, I'm sure. Time for a swim, called the girl to the boy. Let's grab the noodle, our favourite toy. As stiff as a board, looking ever so cool, the girl picked up Pedro and jumped in the pool. They floated and frolicked, tied knots, made a sword with Pedro as noodle until they got bored. The girl plucked up Pedro, the boy got a clout. Poor Pedro sought new ways to help them all out. I'm off to start mowing, called Mum, feeling bored. So Pedro curled round the lawnmower as cord. Mum pulled and she pulled, then it spluttered to life, and off roared the mower with Pedro in strife. The grass cuttings flew and ill Pedro turned green. The blades chopped up dirt. Boy, Mum sure could be mean. With fangs all a-rattle, he shut his eyes tight. Then Mum hit a ditch and poor Pedro took flight. The washing line, quiet with no one around, was where Pedro landed. He'd never be found. I'll hang out the washing, called Dad from inside. with washing and pigs. Dad then wandered outside. Snap went a pig as it gripped on a shirt. Ouch, called out Pedro. It started to hurt. Click, up went shorts to hang in the hot sun. Being covered in undies just wasn't much fun. Dad left saw Pedro, who twisted and bobbed. He fell off the line and his body still throbbed. He climbed to the rafters outside the front door, feeling quite lonely and ever so sore. That night, a robber appeared at the door. So Pedro smiled warmly by opening his jaw. Ah, screamed the robber and fled on his way. The family saw Pedro had chased him away. These days, brave Pedro is lonely no more. His family love that he lives by their door. They feed him and stroke him, he's no need to roam, as finally Pedro has found a new home.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Very good.
That was good, Di.
I actually read that the other night and laughed.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yes, it was inspired by the pythons that live around the house.
Yeah.
Your house?
Yeah.
Oh, you must be up in Queensland.
I'm in Brisbane, yes.
Oh, yeah. That's why I live in Victoria.
Good move.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody. I think it's wonderful what you do. The society is absolutely marvellous and it's a brilliant opportunity. I'm in a critique group for writing for children, and I've mentioned the CJ Dennis Society to them all, so hopefully they'll all start joining.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic. You got it here. Do you want to read it, Jane?
The crab song, when Ruth Aldridge was judging this, she didn't know where it came from, and she said that what she liked about it was it had a good rhythm to it, and as soon as she started reading it to me, I recognised that it was the Clippity Clop, the butcher song or poem. Snippity snap, snippity snap, here comes the crab with a big snap snap. Clickety, clickety, clickety click, the sneaky crab will give you a trick. Scuttling, scuttling, he'll snip all your toes. If you lie down, he'll nip your nose. He'll pinch on your bag and munch on your snack. Snippity snap, snippity snap. And that was grade preps to year 4. So he did a really good job.
And second prize.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, second
that's
prize.
right. Yellow is the hot sun. Yellow is the pretty flower. Yellow is the colour of fun. Yellow is the fire when the nights are cold. Yellow is the coin I got from the toy I sold. Yellow is a golden earring. Yellow is a bird that sings. Yellow is so many things. And that's by Willow Walsh.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to do this, but
No.
I'm going to ask, and you can overrule me, Dan. I know that David won a recent competition. He came first and won a decent prize, and I haven't heard your poem from that. So, David, if you're feeling brave or generous, would you care to share that with us? And perhaps for the people that don't know what you wrote for the competition, and you might want to recite it for us.
This was interesting because this was a competition set up in Cloncurry in Queensland, and it was the very first competition was held this year. And I have Shelley to thank for telling me about it, because it came out of nowhere, and they ran it with a theme of the spirit of the outback. And so I had to think about this, think about that subject, and this is what I wrote. It's called The Heart and Soul of Australia. There's a spirit in the outback that's a challenge to define when a poet tries to find the words he needs, and tradition prompts the pattern of a metered rhyming line. As a modern critic, disappointed, pleads, oh no, please, not Henry Lawson, CJ Dennis and the rest, like the banjo and that snowy river ride, with those endless golden sunsets in the desert way out west, and explorers who so tragically died. But this seems a situation where that challenge should be met. For that history of verse can't be ignored, as it's given us those stories that we never should forget. And I reckon that it can still strike a chord. So let's take a journey inland, well away from Queensland's coast, to the Curry in the land of Burke and Wills, where a township built on copper is now very proud to boast of the need that one amenity fulfills. If you want to find a symbol of Australia's heart and soul, it's the Flying Doctor Service that supplies so much aid to far-flung outposts, as it plays a vital role in protecting those who'd have to otherwise spend a day or more on travel for the health care they require when emergencies have caught them unprepared. So the service can be something that will guide us and inspire further thinking about stewardship that's shared, like respecting Mother Nature, as we're heading down the path of a climate that keeps turning to extremes. So we face a world in danger with a tragic aftermath that will mean the end of all our hopes and dreams when the food bowls of the nation are just arid, wind-blown sand and the rivers merely latticeworks of mud, as a tribute to our failure to take heed and understand that our legacy could be inscribed in blood, leaving nothing in a story spanning 60,000 years from the early days when settlement began with the very first arrivals through the convict pioneers to the present day, and evidence that man is destroying vast resources that are needed to survive as pollution spreads its poison through the air. And so many species suffer as they fight to stay alive in a future that seems destined for despair. So the welfare of the planet is our principal concern as the warning signs get clearer by the day. But we still have many lessons that remain for us to learn if we want to keep catastrophe at bay. And the spirit that we're seeking can be found in all that drives the compassion of the Flying Doctor crews in the 24-hour service that has saved so many lives. Dedication that so rarely makes the news. And those fundamental lessons have to come in part from those well attuned to all the rhythms of the earth, our Indigenous First Peoples, who have known the highs and lows of the seasons since the moment of their birth. For millennia have taught them how to work with nature's laws, how to take just what they need and nothing more. A philosophy essential as an urgent global cause to avoid a vast environmental war. But the first step to be taken is a transformation here, recognition of so much that's been concealed by the steady hum of progress as old cultures disappeared, leaving wounds that time has certainly not healed. The result of crimes committed not so very long ago as the white man colonised Australia's shores, a disruption that continues, as the headlines often show, in a travesty that closes many doors. It's respect that's so important if we want to change our ways for the planet in its current threatened state. But we also have to value the ancestral fires that blaze like a beacon with the dreamers who relate what's existed through the ages, what is now and yet to come, in the hope that through the years that lie ahead, true equality will flourish when we're marching to a drum that ensures mankind is healthy, clothed and fed. So let's follow the example that the Flying Doctor sets as a symbol of what selflessness achieves through a caring hand extended without rancour or regrets. an acknowledgement that service interweaves understanding and commitment to a shared environment that depends upon us all to play our part in a fragile ecosystem where the curse of discontent can so easily destroy a nation's heart.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Jim. Yes, it picks up on a number of themes, our Indigenous history, the Flying Doctor Service, and it also plays to something that I'm very keen on promoting, and that is the use of traditional verse to deal with contemporary themes. I think bush poetry has a place, certainly, looking back at the history, but I think it also has a very valuable place in dealing with what's happening today. So that's what I was trying to do with that poem.
This is the category 5, which is years 5 to 8. In past years, we've divided the children's writing between primary and secondary, and we realised that there's a huge problem with that because the difference in maturity and skills between somebody in grade 1 and somebody in grade 6 is huge, as to some extent it is between year 7 and year 11 or 12. So we decided this year that we would have 3 categories for the children, which divides them a bit more equally. So category 5 that Bernie's just been talking about is years 5 to 8, and the winner was Natalie Barr with Little Mary Jane and Her Bike. Natalie, I think, won. Did she win last year,
Yes.
Jan? Yeah.
Natalie has actually been a consistent winner. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not just amongst the adults that we find consistent place getters. We find it in those children who keep entering, tend to keep coming up. So this is Natalie's poem. Out the schoolhouse window she stares as the sun shines its magnificent glare, and the road is long and tired and sad. The gravel looks worn out, weather-clad. The school bell rings, goodbye to the year. Everyone is worried this moment may disappear, for hopes of cricket and heat and icy poles, hiding out just for the air conditioning in coals. These seem far too good to be true, sun too bright, sky too blue, but still the children shout and cry. It's only grade 6, but they still say goodbye. Little Mary Jane rides off on her bike, waits again for her dodgy gears to strike. She rides past the bakery in the dead heat, sniffing the pastry and sausage roll meat. Concrete spits and wax, there's flies in the air. The wind gets caught in her helmetless hair. The brakes squeak and sputter and protest, but by Little Mary Jane this goes unnoticed. She heads to the river, follows its route, coughed from the dust left by a passing ute. Her state school polo is covered in dust, her once blue bike is covered in rust. And Little Mary Jane keeps riding along, humming the tune to her little song. Humidity keeps growing sticky on skin, scrapes and bruises scattered on shins. And sure enough, ahead lies the beach, blissful water, sand soft as a peach. She can almost feel it beneath her toes. Salty waves wash away her woes. And soon enough, Little Mary Jane is there, basking and squealing with salt in her hair. Waves whip her uniform and her bright cheeks. The wind whispers and the seagulls speak.
I was really torn between this poem and the one we put in second place. So it's a really close competition for both places. And congratulations to both those writers. Both have strong rhyme and rhythm, and both poems tell a really engaging story, and they hold the reader's interest throughout.
Second prize for the Bearded Dragon is Jeremy Shaw.
Hang on.
Is it Jerome or Jeremy?
Jerome.
Jerome, sorry about that. Hi, Jerome. So you won second prize for your Bearded Dragon. So maybe, seeing we've got you there on the screen, if you'd like to read your poem.
Oh, yes.
That'd be great.
It's right here. Okay. The bearded dragon. A bearded dragon, children, Dad called into my room. A bearded dragon. I thought Mum might scream or swoon. Never had I seen one, only pictures in a book. I thought it would be cool, so I went to take a look. My brother was outside, holding the fearsome creature. My dad was the instructor, pointing out its loathsome features. My sisters were so horrified at his ugly Aussie look. Wow, this is more realistic than looking in a book. His features were quite quiescent. They even were to Dad. His back left foot was missing, which must have felt quite bad. Perhaps he lost it in a fight, said Dad with a closer look. And then he joked how might he taste if we gave him a cook. The ghost just shrugged and went inside. My brother had been bored. I searched for any further signs where clues may still be stored. But Dad said, put him back, son, and he ran behind a tree. I sighed. He was much better than any book I'll ever read.
Thank you.
Well done, Jerome.
Go on, Jen.
What school do you go to?
Jerome?
St. Mary MacKillop Colleges in Wagga.
Okay, yep.
Oh, you're just on the border.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the first time you've entered a poetry competition?
Yeah, I think it is, yes.
Your little
Keep
sister.
writing, Jerome. Okay.
Keep writing, Jerome.
Yeah, I will.
Well done.
To be
Join
with us.
us.
And Bushland won third prize, William Gong, and William's with us as well.
And it looks like we've got William here, have we?
Yeah.
William, are you there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah, there you are. Great.
Hi, William.
William won third prize for Bushland. So do you feel like reading yours, William?
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Evergreen leaves litter the floor. The kookaburra laughs. The ants crawling, longing for more. Grass dies in winding paths. Fallen logs create homes for all. Koalas cling onto trees. Kangaroos answer nature's call. The wind lets out a wheeze. Strangers begin to land ashore. Creatures watch them nervous. They scared nature to the core. They weren't giving service. Tents appeared out of nowhere. Fish died in their homes. The forest went through wear and tear. Trees talking in hushed tones. Bleak buildings began to spew smoke. The sky turned blue to grey. Wildlife scurried away from homes. They are here to stay. Once a warm, sunny paradise turned into a wasteland. Now we have to pay the price. We all have to lend a hand. If we lead this land to its doom, we will pay somehow. We can't be greedy. There is room. We will fix. That's a vow.
And the theme of this poem is the Australian natural environment, the focus of much of the writing of C.J. Dennis. Written in this modern age, this young writer reflects on the impact that we have on the environment. This poem uses strong rhyme, and the young writer explores developing metre, stressing the last sound of each line to produce a really steady beat.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Very good.
Really good. And
What
which
school
school do you go to, William?
Australian State College.
Whereabouts is that? In Brisbane. Mhm.
Straight.
So we've got more interstate people this year than we have Victorians, which is really great because it makes it a truly national competition. The honourable mention for A Light at the End of the Tunnel by Tasha Corsten. Do you want to try it without the camera because it says you've got low bandwidth, because then the sound will come through clearly.
A light in the dark, a rose in the thorns, a normal life is what my mind mourns. The bars of a cage, the doors of my home, are they one and the same? Am I all alone? A lockdown restriction, not unlike house arrest, This coronavirus thing is what I detest. To have 0 cases, that'd be bliss. The freedom of travel is what I miss. Yes, suddenly a movement in a room full of corpses. A vaccine is made, I am told by my sources. Am I getting closer to the tunnel's end? But another change comes, one I can't comprehend. Double the cases just in 2 days, and just like that, COVID-19 stays.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it can be a problem up in the Dandenongs getting enough bandwidth. So thank you for persevering, and I'm glad we waited for you to get home so that you could read that for us. Thank you.
This poem has good rhythm and metre, yet it's quite economical use of language. The poem describes an unresolved emotional journey. It's very much about lockdown. The young people that entered this competition had a wonderful sense of rhyme, rhythm, and understanding of what was required. So I received 66 entries. I particularly enjoyed the different ways these young writers experimented with poetry. It was exciting. I'd like to thank everybody involved in the organising of this, and to give young writers and older writers the chance to be involved in such a wonderful competition, and dedicated to CJ Dennis, who's become very, very dear to my heart over the period of researching the history. I always loved CJ Dennis, but I'm rather in love with him now.
Speaking as editor of the book, no, I don't know how many times I've gone over and over and over it looking for errors, and I just noticed one in the second line of this poem. My error, not Natalie's. IT apostrophe S instead of ITS. So those of you who will get this book and will notice that, know that I know that's wrong. It's
not Natalie's.
That's Natalie's, yes. Terrible. So he is
9 to 12.
12.
Will we read the judges' comments?
Yeah, we can.
Joy McCleary judged that. Joy's comment, she commented on the 9 to 12 years. Poetry is a unique art form. Though an economy of language imbued with imagery and mood, it transports and transfixes both the reader and the listener. Producing poetry requires immense discipline and perseverance. Hence, I applaud the 7 young people who took up this challenge for this category, and I implore them to continue their journey exploring the joy that the English language can bring. First place went to Tame the Fire by Kahu Sharma.
So this one is inspired by the bushfires in Australia and the Indigenous Australian technique of using hazard reduction burns, which reduce the chances of bushfires. Feed the fire, but don't give it too much. Otherwise, it might just warm up to your touch. Fuel the flames, but don't let them bite. You might just get pulled into a fight. Spark the embers, but don't let them burn too bright. You might just get lost in the light, never again to see the night. Free the blaze, but don't let it get too bold. Who knows, it might just swallow the forest whole. Aid the inferno, but don't let it rise, for in it is a monster hiding in disguise, possibly already plotting your demise. Praise the pyre, but don't let it get too proud, otherwise it might just sing too loud. And fill your head with lies, making this just another story about someone who tries to tame the fire.
I enjoyed this poem very much. The subject matter is indeed an important one. You have invoked the devastating fires of 2019, memories of which still loom large in the Australian psyche. Unlike several other entries, you have employed rhyme, rhythm, and other poetic techniques to enhance your message about the risks of hazard reduction, burning by repeating a dire warning in each stanza. Your message is strengthened by this repetition as you warn those who burn to not be complacent. For in it, it is a monster, hiding in disguise, possibly already plotting your demise. I gave second prize to Sunny Days, also by Kahu Sharma.
Little fluffs of cotton drifting in the sky. Skies are blue and unmarked by streaks of grey. Dandelion wishes, lemon tart dishes, Golden Valley juice drunk in the shade of an orange tree. Sunny days, endless ways to while away the time in a field of flowers. Yellow and blue, pink and green, daisies and daffodils, lilies and leaves. Children weave around trees, skin glowing in the dappled sunlight that is shining steadily through the canopy on this sunny day.
I found this charmingly lyrical and light-hearted piece. You have included rhyme, albeit sporadically, half rhyme, assonance, and alliteration. These sound devices embellish the imagery and the mood of your poem. The second stanza places us firmly in the position of a relaxed and delighted observer making dandelion wine wishes and eating lemon tart dishes while watching happy, healthy children who weave among the trees. Have you entered before, or is this the first time you've entered?
This is my first time.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I hope
Thank
you're
you.
going to enter again.
Yeah.
Well done and keep writing, definitely.
Yeah.
One comment I want to make about Sunny Days. I love the image of drinking Golden Valley juice in the shade of an orange tree.
Mm.
There's
Yes.
such a tension in that almost. It's great.
I gave third prize to Solitude by Noah Tasker.
Tied down, locked down, stuck in the hole. Can't go in, can't go out, where can you go? Constant replays, songs, sports, shows. Waiting, wishing, wanting, wistfully warbling whenever. Rewatching reruns on the telly that we've seen already, once, twice, 3 times shown. Just watched that, seen that before. The government said it was for the best, and who are we to attest? Get the jab, don't let it spread, one male kangaroo apart. Check in, check out, wear a mask, because if you don't, yeah, we've seen this before. The one where the world ends? No one is safe. Stay home, stay bored. They leave us in old hopes. Our only excitement now, the nightly check of the graph. How will I get my adrenaline now? Questions my brother, after a faulty showing at dinner. By jumping off her, he goes no further, stopped by our mother. For we are prisoners of our own house, kept at bay, trapped by its gyp-rocked walls, patrolled by its high ceilings, and held in chains by our bedsheets. We are helpless to stop it, powerless in resistance, unable to duel. Least, the flies keep us company, their eyes minuscule cameras. They eyeball us, only daring to come close. The wretched soul that it attempts to impress amounts to nothing but a mark left untouched. For these are the dire confinements that we are confined unto. So stay bored out there and continue to decay, because the reason for this imprisonment is an unstable offence, a reversible one at that, but only if everyone out there stays bored and at home. Thanks.
This is an unusual and extremely topical piece which captures the mood of life in Australia during this current lockdown as it is experienced by the young. While end rhyme is absent, the boredom and frustration of the situation are expressed through the use of a variety of poetic devices. Excessive punctuation has also been used to emphasize the repetitive nature of our daily lives while locked down, e.g.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
What school are you at?
I go to Now Christian School in New South Wales.
Uh-huh. So, third prize for Solitude. I was puzzled by that title.
Yeah, I think for want of a better word, for want of a better name, but it was kind of solitary confinement, and you kind of, you're locked in, kind of tied down.
Yeah.
So it's,
Right. Okay, of course.
What year are you in, Noah?
I'm in year 9.
Okay, all right. Excellent. So you're going to enter again next year?
Yeah, well, we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
I'll look
me
out
too.
for you. All right.
Yeah.
I'm Shaz, so I'm the one that takes all of your submissions. So yeah, I'll keep an eye out for you next
Awesome.
year.
Cool. Thank
Okay.
you.
So you're welcome.
Mine's not it's not a beautiful quality poem like all the others that I've listened to. I'm a bit embarrassed by it actually after hearing
tried,
all the
Abby.
wonderful.
You've tried.
Well, we'd still like to hear it if
Yeah.
you're happy to recite it. Come on.
Okay. It's a bit Yeah, all right. If you don't mind, I'll
No, we'd
read
love
it
to.
to you.
Love to. Thank
Okay.
It's about a stray cat, and it's actually, it really happened. My sister had found a stray cat. So it's just a little funny poem about this stray cat. And it's called Elvi the Stray Cat. She called her Elvi and loved her so, a fat little stray with a bright pink bow. Then my sister said she had to go to Sydney on tripping and need you so. I said I'd care for the cat, you know, with bulging belly and face aglow, which seemed each day to grow, grow, grow. Then with sister gone, the cat was mine, mine, mine. I called to Elvi, it's almost 9. I have your favourite, mince with brine. But this was odd, it wasn't fine. That timely kitty loved to dine. But on this day, there was no sign of the puss that was mine, mine, mine. My bro and I searched high and low, looking for the cat, you know. Then I heard my bro say, whoa, for hiding in the wardrobe below was the kitty that we love so. She was giving birth to kits, you know. We placed the cat upon my bed where we saw a little head. Out it came all wet and red, this tiny kitty, we called him Ted. Then our hearts were filled with dread. It lay so still, we thought it dead. Then Elvi licked the little head. It gasped for life. It wasn't dead. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 lovely kittens to adore. Wow, oh wow, what an awesome sight. A truly amazing, fantastical night until the door opened. My jaw went stiff. My face felt white. Sis was home and claimed her right to cat and kittens on this night. I turned and said, I was so polite. These kits are mine, mine, mine. Then sis said, whoa, I didn't know the cat was in that way, you know. So we can share with mum and bro, each take one and watch it grow. Okay, I said, then I'll take Ted as he was first out on my bed. I loved the kit we thought was dead, so cute and fluffy and red, red, red. In came mum. Oh, no, no, no. Those little kids will have to go. We wailed and sobbed with tears aflow for days till mum let go, you know. But it wasn't us that made this so. 'Twas the tiniest kit she loved called Snow. This kit is mine, mine, mine. Elvi, Ted, Max, Pepper, Snow. Wonderful cats, and we love them so. Sorry.
That's good.
Sorry.
Good at reading it, and you're a performer of poetry as well as a writer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really great.
David.
We haven't heard from Shelley for a while, so
Yes.
I suggested that maybe she should go. She should go first.
But I'll start with the poem which won the Marion Main Prize in 2016. And I wrote it, it's called Golden Wedding, and I wrote it from the point of view of Bill, the sentimental bloke, looking back at 50 years of marriage with his beloved Doreen. So the only problem with vernacular is it's not easy to read, so I hope I can do it justice. I've done me 70 years and 10, and just a couple more, and 50 of them spent with my Doreen. And now I'm gazing back at how we've travelled on life's track and thinking of the things we've done and seen. Seems like only yesterday me heart set up a roar when first I saw that bonza little peach what took me breath away. I tried to stop her with "G'day," but knew that she was far above me reach. But Strike, you've read me story and you know it all for sure, how it turned out so happy in the end. It's 50 years today since I stood tall to hear her say, I do, and vowed to love her and defend her honour, and to put her women's needs and wants before me own. Yes, me, what's used me fists and said I'd think of just myself. I put me ego on the shelf and swore to guard each hair upon her head. I've learned a thing or two. Doreen'd say I've learned a score. I thought this marriage caper was a case of husbands being strong and helping wives to get along with life. But struth, I wasn't in the race. You'd think that she was fragile, like the crystals what she wore that day what joined our lives till death us part. I thought I loved her then, but love is daily born again, 'cause I have learnt the strength of Doreen's art. That pilot cove, old Snowy, talked of how the inner core of women is as strong and tough as steel. He said they was designed to help a bloke to be refined and chuck a bit of polish in his spiel. A loving wife became a loving mother when she bore our son, who made our family complete. And now we're Nan and Pa to grandkids. Who'd have thought this far ahead, back there down Little Lonsdale Street? I thinks of Ginger Mick, who went to join the greatest war to end all wars. He didn't know he'd fall. He paid the highest price. But did he dream his sacrifice would start the darkest century of all? I thinks of all the cobbers what we've lost in days of yore. We've learnt what sickness means, and heartache too. But now, here on the farm, I sit content and safe from harm and cherish happy thoughts to see me through. I looks at her and sees her hair is grey. Would I restore our youth if I was blessed with half a chance? Too late to stop the clock. We've lived and laughed and taken stock and learnt that love is better than romance. We never made a fortune. Folk might say that we was poor, but 50 years have taught me that a wife whose name I speaks with pride and who walks faithful by me side is rare as diamonds through the mooch of life.
Thanks, Shelley. That was terrific. It is hard to read the vernacular, but it's even harder to write it, and Shelley does it very well.
We've got time for another if you'd like to read the second one.
Okay. Well, the second one's the short story, and it got first prize last year, and that was the year that we had environment as our theme, environment, climate change. And like David, I reckon Den's job with the newspaper would have been a pretty good one. I love writing things that I've read from news items, and this is one of them. It was a video clip that I saw, a YouTube clip, and it was from 1947, and it showed an entomologist eating several spoonsful of porridge after spraying it with DDT and declaring that it is completely harmless to humans and animals. Well, having seen that, and with the theme last year, I wrote, again, from the point of view of Bill in the orchard, I wrote no flies on the sentimental bloke. It's one of them bonza days, what sneaks up at the start of spring. The birds is busting with song, and the sun is saying winter has just been a dilly dream. I'm having a bit of a blow in me orchard when I sees this here travelling sales coot strolling up. He introduces himself as Swithin Steelman. I dips me lid. Steelman, I says, I've heard that moniker before. Don't have an offsider named Smith, do you? He looks puzzled. Never mind, I says. Show me what you got. Now, I always likes to give a bloke a sporting chance to spruik his stuff. And I've known some spruikers in me time, like Ginger Mick of Spadger's Lane. He could spin the sales pitch, wheeling his rabbit barra back before the Great War. But blimey, Mick wasn't in the race with Swithin Bloomin' Steelman. Could that coot talk? Not half. Good sir, he says, I'm sure you've not failed to notice the blight of the fruit fly on your crops. This bloke must work for the wireless, I thinks, because he's first with the news. But remembering me manners, like Doreen taught me, I nods politely. Yup, I says. And as I ain't had a visit from the king, you'd best drop the sir and call me Bill. Me first mistake. He sits down and plonks his paw on me shoulder. Bill, friend, he says. I groans to myself as he launches into the longest sentence the English language has ever known. 10 minutes it takes him to tell me all the wonders of his magic potion. DDT, he says. Friend Bill, one spray and the entire population of fruit fly is doomed. I lifts me hat and scratches me head. Seems to me, I says, that if every fruit fly snuffs it when this here jungle juice crosses their orbit, it must be powerful stuff. Powerful, he snorts. Stupendous. Then how come it don't kill the other creatures too? That stumps him for a full 5 seconds, just enough for me to get me hopes up. But then he gets his second wind. Safe, friend Bill, safe as houses. Why, he says, warming to the theme, you could swig DDT like a cold beer and feel it doing you good. Show me, I says. Pardon? You got a caseload of it there. Pour yourself a drink and show me. He turns a funny colour and stutters that he can't be consuming the company profits. What would the boss think? What indeed? I asks. How does it go as an enema? He goes a bit grayer and replies glumly that he can't imagine why I would be asking such a strange question. I'll tell you why, I says. If you don't pack up and leave, you might just be the first to find out. I'll take me chances with the fruit fly. A good day to you, friend Swithin. Oh, I was polite. Doreen would have been proud.
You've done a beautiful job, Shelley. Not just the way you've constructed it and written it, but the delivery adds to another dimension to it, which is what we try and do at our festival. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Maybe next year, who knows, we'll be there in person. But Rod and I would both like to second what you said before about this having been very successful today. Yeah. And if it is that we can't be there, and if this provision's available next year, well, count us in from Queensland.
Since it's a CJ Dennis event, has anybody done wheat?
No.
No.
Oh, well, that's my very favouriteest CJ Dennis poem.
And nobody does wheat like Greg, can I just interject?
No pressure.
Make it white or brown.
Well, do your bestest.
All right, good on you. Sowing things and growing things and watching of them grow. That's the game, my father said, and father ought to know. Setting things and getting things to grow for folks to eat. That's the life, my father said, that's very hard to beat. Now, my father was a farmer, as his father was before, just sowing things and growing things in the far-off days of yore. In the far-off land of England, till my father found his feet in the new land, in the true land, where he took to growing wheat. Wheat, wheat, wheat. Oh, the sound of it is sweet. I've been praising it and raising it in rain and wind and heat since the time I learnt to toddle till it's beaten in my noddle is the little song I'm singing you of wait, wait, wait. Planting things and granting things is going as they should, and the weather altogether is behaving pretty good, is a pleasure in a measure for a man that likes the game. And my father, he would rather raise a crop than make a name. For my father was a farmer, and all fame, he said, ain't real. And the same it isn't filling when you're wanting for a meal. So I'm following in his footsteps and a keeping of my feet while I cater for the nation with my wait, wait, wait. Wait, wait, wait. When the poets all are beat by the reason that the season for the verse crop is a cheat, then I comes up bright and grinning with the knowledge that I'm winning with the rhythm of my harvester and wait, wait, wait. Reading things and heeding things that clever fellas give, and pondering and wondering why he was meant to live. Muddling through and fuddling through philosophy and such is a game I never took to, and it doesn't matter much. For my father was a farmer, as I might have said before, and the sum of his philosophy was grow a little more. For growing things, my father said, it makes life sort of sweet, and your conscience never swats you if your game is growing wheat. Wait, wait, wait. Oh, the people have to eat, and you're serving and deserving of a velvet cushioned seat in the cocky farmer's heaven when you come to throw a seven, and your password at the portal will be wait, wait, wait. Now, the preacher and the teacher have a calling as high while they're spouting to the doubting of the happy by and by. But I'm saying that the praying, it is better for their souls when they've plenty wheat inside them in the shape of penny rolls. For my father was a farmer, and he used to sit and grieve when he thought about the apple that old Adam got from Eve. It was fooling with an orchard where the serpent got 'em beat, and they might have kept the homestead if they'd simply stuck to wheat. Wait, wait, wait. If you're seeking to defeat care and worry in the hurry of the crowded city street, leave the hustle all behind you. Come and let contentment find you in a cosy little cabin lying snug among the wheat. In the city, more's the pity, thousands live and thousands die, never caring, never sparing pains that fruits may multiply. Breathing, living, never giving, greedy but to have and take, dying with no day behind them, live for fellow mortal's sake. Now my father was a farmer. I used to sit and laugh at the fools of life, he called them, living on the other half, dying lonely, missing only that one joy that makes life sweet, just the joy of useful labour, such as comes of growing wheat. Wait, wait, wait. Let the foolish scheme and cheat, but I'd rather, like my father, when my span of life's complete, feel I'd live by helping others, earned the right to call them brothers, who had gained while I was gaining from God's earth his gift of wheat. When the setting sun is getting low above the western hills, when the creeping shadows deepen, and a peace the whole land fills, then I often sort of soften with a feeling like content, and I feel like thanking heaven for a day in labour spent. For my father was a farmer, and he used to sit and smile, realising he was wealthy in what makes a life worthwhile. Smiling, he has told me often, after all the toil and heat, lad, he's paid in more than silver, who has grown one field of wheat. Wait, wait, wait. When it comes my turn to meet death the reaper and the keeper of the judgment book I greet, then I'll face him sort of calm, with the solace of the farmer, that he's fed 1,000,000 brothers with his weight.
Brilliant, Greg. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done.
Fabulous, Greg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, great performance. And it's just, that's the epitome of Dennis, isn't it?
Yep.
Just the...
Yeah, Dennis had a brilliant way of stringing rhymes together, and the way you delivered it just makes it shine, really. He had a gift of putting words and rhymes and all sorts of things in ways that other poets didn't.
And it looks like Alan Hazelwood has just appeared.
Thanks for being patient. Thanks for the day. Because I was here for quite a while this morning. My poem is just a simple rhyming poem. And it was CJ Dennis's poem, The Publisher, that it's based on. Or it could just as easily have been The Teacher as well, which we heard someone read their poem earlier. Anyway, I'll get reading so if I can go home. The editor. What a literary expert the editor must be. There is so much more to English than dotting I's and crossing T's. I couldn't be an editor. They know more than just big words. They can properly organise them, adjectives, nouns and verbs. Every sentence must be carefully checked. Has it a verb and subject? Or is it just a fragment of the writer's sentiment? Editors, they share a knowledge that really is absurd. They know all the different ways to use, pronounce and spell each word. Don't ask me about modifiers, dangling, squinting or misplaced. It requires a special knowledge that I have not embraced. When to use an adverb, that I am unsure. Better ask an editor. They all know the score. If you need to fix your punctuation, don't you dare ask me. Go and ask an editor. They invented the apostrophe. More knowledgeable than a computer, are more powerful than a train. Wondrous are the thoughts that fill an editor's brain. If language problems plague you, anything big or small, just ask your trusty editor, the one who knows it all. The end.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for being the one who knows it all.
Jim, I just want to ask you, you're on the program, your Dusk is what's going to bow us out. That's the recording, isn't it? And I'm going to share my screen in a minute to play Jim's rendition of Dusk with guitar accompaniment. And I trust this is going to work because it's coming from a website.
CJ Dennis loved this place, and one of his favourite times was at the end of the day. That magic moment between daytime and nighttime, everything quietens down, the light gets beautiful, and he thought that was the best time of day. And he wrote this lovely poem I'd like to perform for you now called Dusk. And actually the first line of this poem is written on CJ Dennis's headstone in the cemetery at Box Hill, where he was buried in 1938. Dusk by CJ Dennis. Now is the quiet healing hour that brings to this gay green world peace and grateful rest. Where lately, over opalescent hills, the blood of slain day reddened all the west. Now at night's behest, a glow that over all the forest fills, as with the promise of golden daffodils. Of all hours, this is best. This is a time for thoughts of holy things, of half-forgotten friends and one's own folk. The garden-scented sweetness clings to mingle with the wood fire's drifting smoke. A startled croak sounds from the gully, where the last bird sings its laggard vesper hymn with folded wings, and night spreads forth her cloak. Keeping their vigil where the great range yearns, like rigid sentries stand the wise old gums. On blundering wings, a night moth wheels and turns and lumbers on, mingling its drowsy hums with that far-off roll of drums. The swift creek goes tumbling through the ferns, and now as the first star in the zenith burns, the dear soft darkness comes.
I wonder if Margaret's got any comments she'd like to make about what she's watched today.
Congratulations to all the winners and to the organisers. It's been a fascinating day, and the humour and the liveliness and the engagement with poetry that rhymes and has metre are all wonderful to behold, and it really marks a fantastic legacy that the Society and the Singing Gardens are providing for CJ Dennis and his work and his memories, and you're definitely keeping his name and the memories alive. But that's on behalf of the English Speaking Union Victoria branch, which sponsored a lot of the activity. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. All the best. Stay healthy and stay joyful.